Well, Dr. Feintola Ganiyu, a public health physician, joins us this afternoon to discuss some of the things we've seen in Bielsa and across the country. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Well, I mean, we just saw what's going on in Bielsa, and I'm pretty sure that this is something you find across the country and even across the world. And we saw a cross-section of people, young, old, male, female, a lot of them not wearing their face masks. But when you put that side by side with the statement made that young people are driving the spread of COVID-19, how do they really intersect?
Yeah, they intersect because you see, if the young people, especially the students, not using the face mask and, avoiding the use of the hand sanitizers and washing their hands with soap and water when they get home, they can affect the elderly ones at home. And the elderly ones are the ones that come down with the disease the most because young individuals, their immune systems are still working very well, unlike the elderly ones. So if the young people are not adhering to the rules, it goes a long way in affecting the elderly ones, and the numbers keep on rising. So that's why we're admonishing the younger ones also to try as much as possible to use the face masks, sure to use their hands, alcohol-based hand sanitizers, and use of water and soap to wash their hands. Because if they don't do that, they go back into the community, mix with adults, mix with market women, mix with other people in the community, and as well, the virus keep on spreading and increases the number than we expect.
But it also appears as though the older ones are not adhering to the protocols, as you see there. I mean, there were two older ones saying, well, I don't wear it because it doesn't allow me speak well and what have you. So, I mean, shouldn't the message also be holistic, saying, yes, young people are driving it, but the older ones, you should also ensure that you adhere? Yeah,
it's very important because the elderly ones think that because, they've opened everywhere, they feel that the disease is no more as it was before. But we are still admonishing them and telling them to use their face masks, to use their hand sanitizers, because if they come down with the disease, it's actually very, very severe in them than even the younger ones. So the elderly ones shouldn't just, throw all the cautions to the wind and try not to use their face mask and say it doesn't allow anybody to breathe well, but it's for their own good. It's for their own good because, if you don't breathe well and later on you fall down with COVID, if you mix two of them together, you see that being alive is very much important.
There was that analogy saying if you think that face masks don't allow you to breathe, how about you try, what's that thing called?
The face shield?
No, the medical equipment that helps people breathe in the ICU.
That's the ventilator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right there. Now, another thing that is quite tricky about this is the fact that, you see that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, for example, says he wore his face mask, he wore his face shield, he washed his hands, he ensured he sanitized his hands. He had even this air purifier that people wear on their chests, and still he came down with the virus. And one wonders, you can actually ensure that you abide by this, and somehow this sneaky virus comes in. So
it's very, very possible because you don't know where you might have touched, you don't know who you might have spoken to. It doesn't show on the face, and somebody may be asymptomatic and not show symptoms, and you just go into a garden, just for example, for a minute, you just put your face mask aside and try to converse with that person. It's a respiratory disease, so with a little time, you can just take it with symptoms, and it takes a while before it shows. It takes weeks. The incubation period is 5 to 6 days. So before somebody actually come down and feel ill, it can take a week or 2 weeks. So any place, it's possible for you could have picked it up in a very, very minute minute.
So never drop the ball.
You'll never drop it.
Okay, well, I'd also like to get your thoughts on this conversation around, the lasting effects or what happens after you recover from COVID-19. There's been talks about COVID-19 leaving people, with some side effects or some morbidities. What's the conversation around that?
Well, when you recover from COVID-19, the symptoms don't just relieve you alone. You could still have cough, you could still have joint pain, you could still have tiredness, what they call fatigue, there's weakness in your bones and in your muscle. But it doesn't mean that you still have the disease, you understand? It's just some of the symptoms, especially if you were really severe, it really hits you very much while you had the disease. So we just admonishing, try as much people to manage the symptoms, but when you start feeling feverish again and, headache, cough, like how you were feeling before, in that case of situation, you should report yourself. But when you recover from COVID, some of those symptoms might still be within your system, and we're trying to let people know that it doesn't mean you still have the virus, but just that it can take a longer while, especially if yours was very severe. It could affect you breathing very well as much as
so nothing really life-threatening? Because there were talks about the lungs being affected.
I know that you have some life-threatening ones. It could affect the lungs, and especially if you have on ventilator initially, you know, so it causes some scar tissues in the alveoli, and you know, makes difficulty in you for breathing. Then it could also affect the brain. It could also affect the heart, the muscle of the heart. So those three major organs could be affected on the longer run. But you know, studies are still being going on while the longer term effects could cause or could manifest in person. They're just trying to, you know, similar to some of the viruses that's like the influenza virus, the longer term effect of what that could cause. So trying that to put into COVID also, we are not so sure, but studies are still going on to find out what the longer term effect, but they have seen that the lungs, the heart, and the brain could be affected.
Okay, final thing, in just about 10 seconds. So there's been a conversation, moral persuasion or enforcement. Okay. What is the way to go?
I think both, yes. Both persuasion and
I saw that coming really stay in the middle. But thank you so much, Dr. Fahintala Gani, a public health physician. Thank you for your thoughts this afternoon.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, South Korea's COVID-19 rate has not been this intense since March, and we'll bring you more after the break. Please stay with us.